My ex claimed I had explicit photos of her as a teen, then sent them to my boss and friends. When I threatened to report her, she smiled and said, "Nobody ever believes the guy." I walked away. That was 6 months ago. This morning, she was pacing outside the courthouse, clutching her phone and shaking. I loved Megan to the ends of the earth. She was my first thought every morning and my last thought every night. She struggled with bipolar, but was still the sweetest girl ever with the most amazing laugh that made me want to joke, just to hear it again. For 6 months, it was the happiest I'd ever been. But then, one random Wednesday night, I lost my phone somewhere in my apartment. I asked to borrow hers to call it. She hesitated for a second but handed it over. While it rang on my end table, her phone lit up with a message from someone named Danny. I didn't mean to look. It just popped up. It said, "Find anything on him yet?" I asked her who Danny was, and she froze. Her face changed completely. I handed her the phone back and she just said, "It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. I waited until she fell asleep and checked her phone again. I saw weeks of messages with Danny, page after page of paranoid rants. She was convinced I was having an affair with my coworker Hannah because of a hunch. Nothing more. No evidence. Just a hunch. She wrote to Danny about how she had spent months combing through my messages and my emails regularly, determined to find something to prove her right. She even talked about regularly checking my cloud backups. My chest felt tight reading it. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I sat her down and told her I read the messages. She started crying immediately, said she felt insecure, that she loved me too much and just didn't know how to handle it. I told her I couldn't be in a relationship where I was being spied on. She didn't fight me on it. She cried, nodded, and said she understood. I offered to help her find a ride home, and she said she already ordered one. She left that afternoon and texted me later thanking me for the time we shared. It all seemed a little too clean. About 2 weeks later I got back from visiting my parents for the weekend and noticed something weird. My door was locked. No sign of a break-in. Nothing was out of place. But my personal laptop was gone. Not my work laptop. Just the one I used at home. I texted Megan. She swore up and down she hadn't been anywhere near my place. Said she'd been at a yoga retreat the whole weekend and could prove it. The message read like a script. Too perfect. I didn't have any proof she'd taken it, so I tried to let it go. That was until my friend Connor called me sounding off. He said Megan had messaged him about why we broke up. She told him it's because she found something disturbing, something illegal. She said she found hundreds of inappropriate photos of her as a minor on my computer. My world stopped. What she told him was a lie. A sick, twisted lie. I asked him to believe me. I literally cried on the phone begging him, but I could tell he didn't. Within days, all my friends stopped answering me, started calling me names and threatening me with police. I even began getting death threats off random people online. I felt isolated, alone, hated. Megan was spreading this lie to everyone. And then HR called me into a meeting. They said they'd received anonymous emails with attachments. They didn't tell me what the attachments were, but I already knew. They told me I was suspended pending an investigation, and I needed to surrender my devices. That night, 2 detectives came to my apartment with a warrant. They took every device I owned. I tried telling them my ex was setting me up, but they refused to even look at me. Afterwards, I did the only thing I could think of. I got a lawyer, a cheap one, the only one I could afford. The first thing he told me was to cooperate fully, and even though I listened to him, it didn't matter, because a week later, he called me. He'd gotten a heads up from the detective that seized my devices. They had found images in a hidden folder on my work laptop, images of Megan when she was 13, and they were pressing charges. My world stopped. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Megan had somehow transferred the files over to my work laptop. I had no idea how, but it didn't matter. My life was crumbling, and before I knew it, officers were at my doorstep, bringing me in for questioning. They proceeded to interrogate me all day, doing everything they legally could to get a confession. They offered me all they could, promised to finally bring me what they were withholding from me: food, water. My lawyer did come in to talk to me, but he was useless. He told me to plead guilty. He even looked at me like I was lying when I swore I was innocent. I remember lashing out at him, telling him I didn't want his services, and so he left. The officers went back to trying to get a confession out of me, but I refused to give in, and after a little, they left, and a miracle lifeline was tossed to me. I don't know how she found out, but my cousin Julia, an intern at a law firm, and the only person I knew 100% believed me, walked into the room, and she was with Ted, another guy from her firm. "They're releasing you on bail," Julia said, looking exhausted but relieved. Ted was a stocky guy with thick glasses and a serious expression. On the drive back to Julia's place, where I'd be staying, he explained that the evidence against me was damning, but had some inconsistencies they could work with. The timestamp metadata on some files didn't align with my work schedule. It wasn't enough to clear me yet, but it gave us something to start with. "The police won't let an outside expert examine the evidence directly," Ted explained while setting up his laptop on Julia's dining table. "So we need to focus on proving Megan had both opportunity and knowledge to plant those files." I racked my brain trying to remember anything useful. She mentioned her ex was a programmer, said he taught her some tricks once. I didn't think anything of it at the time. Ted perked up at this. "Do you know his name? We could try to contact him." I shook my head. Megan rarely talked about her exes, and I respected that privacy. Ironic now, considering how things turned out. With most of my friends convinced I was guilty, I called the only person who might still believe me, William. We weren't super close, but he'd always been level-headed and fair. Plus, he was good with social media and research. William agreed to help track down Megan's ex through mutual connections. He called back the next day with a name, Kevin Martinez. Apparently, Kevin had made several cryptic posts around the time Megan and I broke up about teaching someone a lesson and what goes around comes around. This seemed promising until William tried reaching out to Kevin. Within minutes of sending a message, Kevin had blocked him completely. We hit another dead end. Meanwhile, Ted suggested we check my apartment building's security footage to prove Megan had been there during the weekend. My laptop disappeared. I called the building manager, but he told me they only keep footage for 10 days. We were already past that window. I felt sick to my stomach. Every potential piece of evidence seemed just out of reach. I remembered my neighbor Carol had installed one of those doorbell cameras after a package theft last year. Her door was at an angle that partially viewed my apartment entrance. When I knocked on her door, she answered but seemed hesitant when I explained what I needed. "I don't want to get involved in something illegal," she said, eyeing me suspiciously. I explained my situation, showing her the court documents about my case. I must have looked desperate because eventually, her expression softened. "Let me see what I have," she said. Carol's footage wasn't perfect, but it clearly showed someone who looked like Megan entering my apartment using a key that Saturday afternoon. The problem was the video quality, too grainy to definitively identify her in court. Ted said it was helpful, but not the smoking gun we needed. "We need to focus on how she could have accessed your devices remotely," Ted explained while examining my laptop. "Did she ever help you set up any technology?" That's when I remembered. About 3 months into our relationship, my internet had been acting up. Megan offered to help set up my new router since she claimed to have the same model. She insisted on handling it while I made dinner. At the time, I thought she was just being helpful. Ted came over and spent hours examining my network. He eventually discovered an unauthorized remote access tool installed on my router. It wasn't sophisticated enough for someone without technical knowledge to create, but it was simple enough for someone with basic instructions to install. "This could explain how she continued accessing your devices," Ted explained while documenting his findings. "Even after you broke up, she could monitor everything you did online and potentially plant files." With this evidence, my lawyer filed a motion to investigate Megan's devices. The prosecutor fought it hard, arguing it was just a desperate attempt to blame the victim. After a heated courtroom debate, the judge granted us limited rights to investigate, one chance to prove our theory. Ted spent days creating a detailed timeline showing when the illegal files were added to my work computer. The timestamps indicated they were uploaded during a company meeting I attended, where 20 colleagues could verify I wasn't at my desk. It was compelling, but still not enough to directly connect Megan to the uploads. "We need to catch her in the act," Ted suggested. "Set up a trap to show she's still actively trying to frame you." We created a new email account with an obviously weak password, and I accidentally mentioned it during a phone call with William while in my apartment, suspecting it might still be compromised. After 3 days, nothing happened. Megan was too careful to fall for something so obvious. Ted came up with a better plan, creating a fake social media post, visible only from certain IP addresses, announcing I'd found evidence that would exonerate me. We made it believable by saying a previously unknown apartment security camera had captured everything. The post would only be visible to someone monitoring my accounts through the back door in my router. Within hours, someone attempted to access my cloud storage from an unrecognized device. They used a VPN to hide their location, but Ted had anticipated this and set up advanced tracking for their next attempt. While waiting for our trap to work, I discovered something else troubling. My boss called to ask if I was using burner phones to contact the office. Apparently, Megan had been sending threatening messages to him, claiming they were from me. I had no way to prove they weren't mine, but I convinced my boss to forward them to Ted for analysis. The timestamps on the messages proved I couldn't have sent them. They were delivered while I was in documented meetings with my lawyer or during my police interview. This evidence strengthened our case, but wasn't enough to completely clear my name. Ted's analysis of the illegal images found on my computer revealed something crucial. They had been edited with specialized software I've never owned or used. The prosecution argued I could have used someone else's computer, but it gave us another angle to investigate. We needed to find the original source of these images to prove they were planted. Ted noticed something odd about the files. They had unusually clean metadata, almost too perfect, like someone had methodically created a false trail. "These might not even be real photos," Ted suggested after hours of analysis. "They could be manipulated or even completely fabricated." This was our breakthrough moment. If we could prove the images were created recently using deepfake technology or advanced editing software, it would destroy the prosecution's case. Ted requested specialist help from a colleague who worked in detecting manipulated images. While waiting for results, I focused on finding anyone who might have information about Megan's activities. I remembered the name from her text messages, Danielle. With William's help, we found her full name through Megan's public social media, Danielle Wright. When William reached out to Danielle online, she immediately refused to talk. Her response was curt and frightened. "I don't know anything. Leave me alone." William decided to approach her in person at the coffee shop, where her Instagram check-ins showed she went every Tuesday. I was under strict bail conditions and couldn't go myself. She was terrified, William reported back, but I convinced her we just wanted the truth. She agreed to meet tomorrow at the park, somewhere public. Danielle showed up wearing sunglasses and constantly looking over her shoulder. William recorded their conversation with her permission. Megan's obsessed with proving you cheated, Danielle explained nervously. At first I thought she just had trust issues, but after you broke up, she changed, started talking about making you pay. When William showed her the evidence we'd collected, including the remote access tool and the manipulated timestamps, Danielle's face went pale. Oh God, she whispered. She told me she was just gathering evidence of your cheating. I didn't know she was doing this. Danielle revealed Megan had bragged about teaching me a lesson I'd never forget, but wouldn't share specifics. She seemed genuinely horrified by what Megan had actually done. Though she was afraid to testify officially, she agreed to sign an anonymous statement detailing what she knew about Megan's behavior and accusations. With Danielle's statement and our technical evidence, the prosecutor finally agreed to re-examine the case. We were scheduled to present everything in court the following Monday. That Sunday night, someone broke into Ted's office and stole our physical evidence files. The timing couldn't have been coincidental. Fortunately, Ted kept digital backups in encrypted cloud storage. We quickly worked to recreate our presentation while increasing security around everyone involved in my defense. Security footage from Ted's building clearly showed a woman matching Megan's description entering with a stolen keycard and leaving with our files. Police went to question her at her apartment, but she had already cleared out. Her neighbor said she left with a suitcase the previous evening. At this point, the police started taking our claims more seriously. They issued an alert for Megan, but couldn't locate her. I lived in constant anxiety, not knowing where she was or what she might do next. A break came from an unexpected source. Megan's friend Rachel posted a photo on Instagram with a location tag at a lake house about 2 hours outside the city. The caption read, "Girls' Weekend Getaway," with Megan clearly visible in the background. Police located the cabin and found not only Megan, but also a laptop containing software for manipulating images and creating deep fakes. When confronted with the evidence, Megan broke down completely. She admitted to creating the images herself, using photos from innocent family albums she'd seen at my apartment. Combined with deep fake technology her ex had taught her how to use, she confessed to everything, planting the files, sending the fake threats, breaking into Ted's office. The detective who had originally looked at me with such disgust now couldn't meet my eyes when he came to tell me the charges were being dropped. "We owe you an apology," he said stiffly. "We should have investigated more thoroughly before making assumptions." The nightmare wasn't over yet. Megan was charged with filing false reports, evidence tampering, breaking and entering, and harassment. She was released on bail pending a psychiatric evaluation and trial. I thought I could finally breathe easier, but the damage to my reputation had already been done. People who had seen the accusations online didn't necessarily see the retraction. Former friends who had cut contact didn't all reach out to reconnect. My suspension from work was lifted, but co-workers still whispered when I walked by. I returned to my apartment after staying with Julia for weeks, only to find someone had spray-painted "Predator" on my door. The building management promised to remove it immediately, but the message was clear. Some people would always believe the worst. My lawyer advised me to file for a restraining order against Megan, which was quickly granted. I changed all my locks, passwords, and contact information. Ted did a complete sweep of my apartment and devices to remove any remaining monitoring software. Just when I thought things might be stabilizing, I started receiving anonymous text messages. "This isn't over," and "You'll pay eventually." I couldn't prove they were from Megan, but who else would it be? The messages were coming from different burner numbers, making them impossible to block effectively. I reported them to the police, but there wasn't much they could do beyond documenting them as potential restraining order violations. Ted suggested setting up monitoring on my accounts to track any unauthorized access attempts. The results were disturbing. Someone was still trying to breach my email and cloud storage almost daily. The attempts were coming from an internet cafe near where Megan's friend Rachel lived. When police investigated, the cafe owner confirmed seeing someone matching Megan's description using their computers several times that week. However, without camera footage, they couldn't definitively prove it was her. My lawyer contacted Megan's attorney about the continued harassment. Her lawyer insisted Megan was complying with the restraining order and receiving treatment. He promised the harassment would stop immediately. The very next day, I walked out to find my car keyed with the word "liar" scratched deep into the paint. A nearby store's security camera showed someone in a hoodie that matched Megan's build, but their face wasn't visible. I filed another police report, feeling increasingly helpless. When police questioned Megan, she had a solid alibi. She was at her therapist's office during the time my car was vandalized. The therapist confirmed this. The police should have immediately investigated if someone else was helping Megan, especially given the restraining order that forbade her from contacting me directly or indirectly through others. Unfortunately, they didn't pursue this angle initially. I started thinking Megan might be working with someone. The timing of her alibi was too convenient. I asked William to look into her close friends and family for anyone who might be helping her. He focused on investigating Danielle first, since she seemed scared when we talked to her before. When William checked Danielle's social media, he found she'd blocked both of us. That seemed weird after she'd agreed to help. When William ran into her at a coffee shop a few days later, she looked terrified and practically ran out the door. Something was definitely wrong. William managed to slip her a note with his number before she left. 3 days passed with no contact. I was starting to think she was fully back on Megan's side when William got a call from a payphone. It was Danielle, William told me after. She's scared out of her mind. Megan's brother Ryan has been threatening her to keep quiet. He's the one who keyed your car. This was huge news. I'd never even met Ryan during my relationship with Megan. Danielle said she couldn't make an official statement because Ryan warned her something bad would happen if she talked to police again. We need to catch this guy without putting Danielle at risk, Ted said when I told him. Let's look into Ryan's social media, see if we can find any connection between him and Megan's recent activities. Ryan's accounts were all private, so William created a fake profile pretending to be an old classmate from Ryan's high school. After a couple days, Ryan accepted the friend request. What we found was shocking. Direct messages between him and Megan planning different ways to mess with me. The car was just the beginning, one message read. Wait until he sees what's next. Ted said screenshots alone wouldn't be enough for police to act. We needed to catch Ryan in the act. Together, we came up with a plan. I made a post visible only to my close friends list on Instagram, which included the fake account following Ryan, about a job interview I had scheduled for Thursday morning. Instead of going to any interview, Ted and I sat in his car across from my apartment building early Thursday morning. Sure enough, around 9 a.m., a guy matching Ryan's photos from social media walked up to my building. He looked around suspiciously before pulling something from his jacket pocket and crouching by my door. Ted called the police while I recorded video on my phone. 2 officers arrived within minutes and caught Ryan trying to slip an envelope under my door. Inside the envelope were printed screenshots of fake messages, supposedly from me, threatening Megan. Ryan broke almost immediately under questioning. The police found a USB drive in his pocket, containing more fabricated images he planned to plant on my computer. He admitted he was planning to break into my apartment using a copy of the key Megan had made during our relationship. Ryan claimed Megan had convinced him I was dangerous and abusive, that I'd threatened her life after the breakup. He was just protecting his sister. Megan showed me proof of everything you did, Ryan told the detective. She said the system was failing her and she needed my help. The detective asked what proof, and Ryan mentioned images Megan had shown him of threatening texts I'd sent her. When they showed him evidence those texts were fabricated, he looked genuinely shocked. Ryan agreed to testify against Megan in exchange for reduced charges. Since Ryan was acting on Megan's behalf, the police determined this was a clear violation of her restraining order. They immediately issued a warrant for her arrest on those additional charges. But by the time police went to arrest her, Megan had vanished. Her apartment was cleaned out, and none of her friends admitted knowing where she went. I tried to get back to normal life with Megan still out there somewhere. My workplace situation improved after my boss sent a company-wide email explaining the false allegations. Some co-workers apologized for believing the worst. A few friends reached out to reconnect, including Connor, who felt terrible for doubting me. Still, I jumped at every notification on my phone and constantly looked over my shoulder. My therapist diagnosed me with PTSD from the whole ordeal. She suggested I take a weekend trip to clear my head. I drove to a lakeside cabin about 3 hours away, telling only William and my parents where I was going. When I returned Sunday evening, I knew something was wrong before I even opened my door. There was a scratch mark around the lock. Inside, nothing seemed missing or disturbed, but I had that feeling someone had been there. I called the police, who found fingerprints matching Megan's throughout my apartment. Still, nothing was stolen or damaged. It made no sense until Ted checked my computer. She installed keylogging software, Ted said after examining my laptop. It records everything you type and sends it to this email address. We realized Megan hadn't just entered my apartment to install keylogging software. She was looking for information about my weekend trip and likely planning to follow me. She needed the software to see if I would reveal my destination to anyone else. The spyware had a flaw that revealed the receiver's location. Ted traced the IP address to a motel about 30 miles outside town. Police raided the room that evening and found it filled with photos of me, printouts of my emails, and a detailed schedule of my daily movements. There was even a map with my parents' house circled, but Megan wasn't there. Somehow she'd slipped away just before police arrived, leaving everything behind. The officer in charge told me they were placing me under protection until they found her. 3 days later, I received an email from an anonymous address with a video attachment. The video showed footage of my parents' house taken from across the street, clearly filmed that morning based on my dad's car in the driveway. Instead of panicking, I worked with the police to set a trap. We decided not to alert my parents, but stationed plainclothes officers around their property. That night, around 2 a.m., the officers spotted Megan approaching the house from the wooded area behind their backyard. They arrested her without incident, finding a backpack containing a knife, duct tape, and printed photos of me and my family. The district attorney warned me that prosecuting Megan would be complicated, given her mental health issues. Her psychiatric evaluation revealed severe untreated bipolar disorder with psychotic features. Despite this diagnosis, the methodical nature of her actions showed she understood what she was doing was wrong. I had to testify at Megan's trial 6 months later, reliving the whole nightmare in front of a courtroom. Her lawyer tried painting her as a victim of mental illness who genuinely believed her delusions. Our evidence showing the calculated planning, fake evidence creation, and recruiting her brother told a different story. The jury found her guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to mandatory psychiatric treatment in a secure facility, followed by prison time. A year after everything started, I received a letter from Megan through her treatment facility. She expressed remorse, acknowledging the harm she caused. Her doctors confirmed she was responding well to medication and therapy. I didn't write back, but gave the letter to my therapist to discuss in our sessions. I'm doing better now. I switched departments at work and moved to a new apartment. I'm still cautious about who I trust, but I recently started dating again. My therapist says my hypervigilance is decreasing, though I still have occasional nightmares. Yesterday, I deleted the folder of evidence I'd kept on my computer, the screenshots, the timeline, the legal documents. I don't need them anymore. The experience changed me, but I'm determined not to let it define the rest of my life.